Well, all right. What kind of goodies do we got on the table today? Well, we have two firearms actually that, when you really think about it, are not so different. I've heard these guns get compared a lot in the last month, but for whatever reason, no one's actually doing a video about it. So that's what we're here today. So on the table, we have a Tommy built G36K. This will be our analog for all H&K G36s, more or less. And on the top, we have an HS product, VHS-K2, imported into the United States as the Springfield Armory Hellion. Of course, this is the brand new hotness bullpup that everyone has to have. And this has been unobtainium for pretty much everybody for a long time. So, why do I got these two guns on the table? Well, like I was saying before, there's a lot of similarities between these two guns, and there's a lot of differences between these two guns. I've long heard the Springfield Hellion be called, or the VHS in general, pretty much be called a bullpup G36, or if a FAMAS and a G36 had a really fun night together. And they're not too far off. I don't do very well review style, butt to tip kind of thing, and I don't really want to make this kind of incoherent rambling, so this is more or less just my thoughts, observing and comparing what I see and what I don't see. So first off, the thing that strikes me most about both guns is they're both very much polymer based. As with the M4, the M16, the AK, those were all a lot of aluminum, a lot of steel and other materials. A lot of these two guns in general are constructed of polymer. Pretty much the entire receiver set for both guns is all polymer. That has its pluses and its minuses depending on how you look at it. For example, the G36s in general have a polymer receiver, and because it's kind of dispersed out a little bit, the weights are generally less. The VHS, as I've come to find out, you're trying to condense this amount of polymer into a 10.5-inch AR kind of format, while also keeping it, military rugged and not blowing your face in half. So the VHS in general is just going to feel more dense. I guess that's the only way to kind of put it. It has the weight and the heft that you kind of expect out of a military firearm. And I gotta admit, the VHS is by far more well balanced than the G36. The balance point for a VHS is just about at the pistol grip, where on the G36 it's slightly forward of the magazine well, at least in my copy, because a lot of the stock has holes cut in it, and barrel's not super heavy, but it is what it is. So. Yeah, so let's start at the back and we'll go forward. So the G36 has a fixed length, not foldable buttstock with a rubber pad in the back. It's not a super cushy pad or anything. HK hook back here, storage locations for your takedown pins, which is cool. But yeah, all this does is fold to the side. In comparison, the VHS has a really, really cool, in addition to a rubber butt pad in the back, it looks like just straight polymer from a lot of the photos, but there is some rubberizing back here. It's got a cool kind of rolled toe, kind of in the same lines as the MO-SL stocks, which is really cool. But one thing that this gun has over the G36 is, of course, the length of pull is totally adjustable for the buttstock of the VHS. So I've heard a lot about, well, wouldn't this make the length of pull way too long? Well, yeah, it makes it long if you're standing up. But surprisingly, when you're in a prone position, this extra length of pull actually kind of evens out, and it helps a lot. So I guess don't try and shit it a little bit until you try it, 5-position buttstock, really awesome. The other part I've heard is the length of pull on the shortest configuration is way too long on the VHS. I am inclined to agree if you're comparing apples to oranges. If you're comparing this to your rack grade AR-15 M4 type setup with the collapsible stock and everything, yeah, this is going to be really long. However, if we're looking at this from kind of a more G36 European kind of context, I feel like the best way to measure length of pull is just to overlay the pistol grips, and that'll give you your best length of pull, right? So if we overlay the pistol grips, as you can see, the G36 is slightly shorter, and this is the G36's long stock, if you will. The G36C type stock is shorter. So yes, this is longer than a normal AR-15, but compared to an actual, a G36 rifle, it's actually not too far off. Is that in line with Americans and what we do? No, probably not. And I've heard inklings out there, people already trying to redesign the VHS to kind of cut down the length of pull and just make this one fixed length. And if you make it a fixed length with whatever amount of space is left for the buffer and the springs and all that, I mean, it comes out to just about a G36 length. So yeah, so for a little bit of buttstock extra, what you're really gaining is this here. And let's ensure we still have our overlay. So this is what you're gaining here. You're getting a lot of barrel and a lot of space on the front end. Just for context purposes, a G36C handguard, not the barrel, ends about here. It's a 2-slot gun, so it ends about here and the barrel sticks out just a little bit more. So essentially speaking, you're getting 16 inches worth of barrel, and this is I added a Surefire War Comp, so this is longer than it normally would be anyways. You're getting a 16-inch barrel package in a 8.5, 9.5 inch long equivalent in a G36, which is absolutely phenomenal. Just for context sake, the TG36 that I have here has a 12.5 inch barrel with the extended flash hider on it. And as you can see, that's absolutely massive just on the end there. Saving space for some people, it doesn't matter a whole lot, but it's what you get. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know, that kind of shows you the size comparison. It's actually quite dramatic once you actually start aligning stuff by itself. Yeah, so let's get this all resituated. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's move forward. I think we beat that dead horse enough. So the G36, fantastic gun, built to be modular. Trigger packs are a separate component. Magazine wells are a separate component. Optical sights are a separate component, and the handguards are a separate component. And it all revolves around this idea of a baseline receiver. I think this does that way better than the Hellion, but the Hellion is not too far off. So for example, switching fire control groups, in this case, it might just be a change of the actual trigger pack. I would dare say that it's almost the same in the VHS, because the VHS has its trigger pack in the back here. The only problem, of course, is the actual selectors up here. But I suppose if you're gonna make your automatic setting 2-round burst, 3-round burst, fully automatic, and just have one setting instead of the G36's multiple settings, it's about the same. So this one's a little bit more readily modular, I would say. But this one, yeah. So props to the G36. Very forward-leaning, very forward-thinking. Going down, the magazine releases. So the magazine release in the G36 by far is the superior one. Not even gonna fight that. the HK paddle, and this is the upgraded paddle with the 2 levers on the sides, being able to kind of just grab the magazine, swipe it down, put a new magazine in, awesome. The issue that I have with the Hellion is it's a pad on the back for Stanag mags, which isn't a problem. The problem being that the amount of movement for the actual pad is so little. Sometimes you have issues, getting the magazine to disengage. Magazines are drop free here. They are kind of drop free here. But besides that, if they could, just make this like a normal power release, that would probably be better. Interestingly enough, so the G36 has a modular magazine well, and one of the most publicized features of the VHS is this magazine well here is modular. Pop a pin, pull this out. You can pop a pin here, pull this out. So, interestingly enough, this gun in military service uses a variation of this gun's magazine. So you can see where the similarities are kind of being made there, where this is essentially a bullpup G36 because it has a lot of the same characteristics. It uses the same magazine. So, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting how the Croatians went about doing this. As we said before, baseline receiver on the G36. Everything else is kind of switchable. I would say for the Hellion, it's about the same. Because realistically, the top rail is replaceable, quote unquote, if we ever get anything in the United States or if the aftermarket supports it. The handguard of the Hellion absolutely pops off. I have no doubt that eventually, sometime in the future, someone's going to come out with a metal rail or a rail with a heat shield, a quad rail, whatever, for the Hellion. It's not even a question in my mind. It's only a matter of if. In a manner of speaking, the buttstock is modular, but we'll get to that whenever we get to that. And of course, like I was saying, the magazine wells are totally modular. Going forward, fire control, the G36 hands down has a better fire control for sure. So for the G36s, it's a 45-degree throw from safe to semi to full auto. And of course, because we have a civilian copy, the actual full auto mode is just semi-auto again, so it's 2 semi-autos. The Hellion has, I would say, kind of a strange 15, 35 degree, whatever, selector with the levers pointed upward. I'm sure this was meant for people not to get their fingers caught or have not the lever bump their hand when they're gripping the gun. It clicks just about as good as that. To me, this is kind of a training issue, but it's also a little bit of an ergonomic issue. I could understand why people would want to get this changed, and if I had the opportunity and someone made a selector that just had a kind of a straight bar and you sweep it down, that's not this 45-degree nonsense going this way, I will most likely probably buy that as an upgrade because this is just a little too strange for me. Talking about the top rail. So actually, before we go that far, let's talk about triggers, because that's a lot of questions that I've heard about the trigger, right? All the YouTube people that have the Hellion now keep talking about, well, the trigger's okay for a bullpup. Well, what is your context? Is your context your Geisley SSA that you have in your match grade AR-15 that you go shoot 40,000 rounds a year? If that's the case, then you're not really comparing apples to oranges, and that I don't think that's correct. So what we're really comparing this trigger to is the G36. And there's a lot of similarities between the Hellion and the G36 that I don't think the YouTube people are catching, that is important for the context of these two firearms. So what I mean by that, so the G36, if you've never felt a G36 trigger, one, it's plasticky. two, it breaks. I won't even call it a carrot because it's not really a carrot. It kind of just breaks like a bunch of sheetrock, if you will. I don't know. That's a terrible analogy, but whatever. So I'm just gonna pull this back. As you can see, there's already a wall there. It stops, and then kind of hard, kind of hard, kind of hard, and then it kind of goes for it. It's a 8 to 9 pound trigger pull easily on the G36 because the G36 is a military rifle. It's not meant to be match grade and super sweet and, you know, shoot 400 rounds, 400 rounds a day or kind of thing. It's meant for the lowest conscript that has the chance of shooting his buddy. So yeah, 8 to 9 pounds on this. And just for comparison on the Hellion, the Hellion has a flat face trigger, which isn't the worst thing ever. It's just kind of weird when, I don't want to say they took design cues from SIG, but that's almost what they did. There's a lot of take up. There is a lot of take up there, right? And then almost when it gets to the back, oops, hang on. Probably help if I actually charge the gun, huh? So there's that much take up, and it stops almost at a flat face. And then there's a little bit of creep, lot of creep, lot of creep, lot of creep, lot of creep, and then it breaks. This is in part, it's not because of the wire coat hanger or the transfer bar. How creepy this is and how weird it is to break is a direct reason about the trigger group. If you ever looked at the trigger group on this, it's really strange. The bar pushes back on a little tab that sticks out from the side of the bolt carrier, and essentially that tab transfers, what it's really doing, if this is the bar, it's pushing the trigger, what we would consider in an AR-15 context, the trigger, it pushes that trigger upwards, and that's what releases the hammer. So you're doing 2 or 3 things at once. There's a lot of stuff going on there. That's why we're not getting, super awesome, perfect trigger pulls. One other thing before we move on. So bolt release. A lot of the questions the comments I've seen about the Hellion is there's no bolt hold open. Well, in the context of a military rifle, yeah, that's a problem, I suppose. You could just pull the bolt back and hold it. It's a way to get around it. In the context of this versus the G36, it's interesting because the VHS has a bolt release, but the G36 has a bolt hold open but no release. So it's almost like inverse of each other. It's very interesting what almost 2 decades worth of kind of lessons learned will get you. Is some things are more important than the other, and I guess in Croatian, since bolt hold open wasn't a priority in the original G36 context, a bolt release that wasn't the charging handle wasn't important. So, it's kind of interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. The nipple, right? The TFB calls it a nipple. It's a sliding bar back. So I was wondering why, how would you slide this back? For the Tavor, if you push up, it kind of slides the bar down and that drops bolt. Makes total sense. That's why it's so easy. Going back to why this trigger pack is so strange. So when you pull this back, essentially what it's doing is it's pushing up on a lever that's pushing down on the bolt hold open. Again, I don't quite understand why they did it like this. I feel like there were more simple ways of getting this done, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do, I suppose. Before we get too far and then we flip it on the other side, let's talk about top rails and optics. So again, with the cool analog portion of this, the G36 has this guy, which is the Hensoldt dual optic. I've done a video about that, so if you guys haven't seen that at all, give it a look. It's pretty cool. They have this, they have a single optic, they have the just straight G36 style carry handle with the rail on top and the iron sights. B&T makes a cool rail that extends out, all the way. So there's a lot of cool modular options for this. The problem being is the interface up here in general sucks massive ass. The dovetail here is okay, but having it kind of bridge and dovetail isn't the greatest. I would not reliably ask any of these to hold zero outside of the B&T rail, because the B&T rail really clamps down. The dual optic was a great idea back in 1994. Is it a great idea now? Absolutely not. This is about as outdated as you can go. With that being said, when we talk about the VHS, one thing I've seen a lot of on the forums is, wow, it wouldn't be really cool to have the 1.5 power optics rail, the cool swoopy looking one that kind of looks like a XM8 back in the day. Yeah, it would be really cool. It would be cool to have the look, but honestly speaking, if you've ever actually used one of these, yeah, you'd probably be changing your mind pretty damn quick. So this is not really ideal. I'm glad that the Hellion shipped with the standard VHS Picatinny rail, and the nice upgrade is the Picatinny rail on the VHS is actually metal or aluminum, and it's not polymer like it is on the G36s. The G36 rail I wouldn't count to hold zero for crap, but this one is actual metal, and it comes with actually decent built-in flip-up sights. If you ever used a G36 carry handle sight system, it's absolutely garbage. The rear sight is ginormous, and the front sight is probably about the most non-precision mass-produced thing you could have ever seen. So these are definitely a ginormous upgrade to the G36s and even to the carry handle optic. As you've seen, I've decided to outfit mine with an EOTech EXPS2. For those out there that are wondering about height over bore issues, I feel like you're already going to get a massive height over bore anyways with how the carry handle and stuff is. You can get low optics, but to me it's more of a height over bore is more of a training issue than it is a ballistics issue. Feel free to disagree, that's your prerogative, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. Let's circle back really quick. So G36 molded in pistol grip. There is no change in this. That is what you got, and hopefully you like it. With the VHS proper, it has its own kind of special molded in pistol grip that's semi-modular, but also not. I think Springfield knocked it out of the park absolutely, picking a AR compatible pistol grip with this rifle. I don't think if you brought it in with its normal pistol grip that a lot of Americans would have been happy about it, because what do Americans in AR-15 that have AR-15s love? They always love changing the pistol grip for some reason. And that's fair. It's personal preference. It's what you like. So I think it was a fantastic idea to include the interface for an AR-15 pistol grip. With that being said, I think it was a horrible idea to put a BCM Mod 3 on this. A lot of people think it's a fantastic idea for the pistol grip choice, but what happened, at least in my opinion, is because the BCM Mod 3 is more vertical in general, it being more vertical increased the length of pull for the VHS to something that was almost uncomfortably long. Just your wrist getting kind of pulled out a little bit increased the length of pull. Putting in normal swept back AR-15 pistol grip like this Magpul MOE Plus fixed all of that. I think this is absolutely just perfect now. So yeah, I think it was a great choice. We won't belabor that point. So let's talk about charging handles, because that's the next fun part, right? So the G36's charging handle flips out on both sides. It's probably one of the coolest features of the G36. it is directly connected to the bolt carrier. So when you're pushing this and you're doing this, this is in reality the bolt carrier here, and you're pushing the bolt carrier. On the VHS, again, flips out to both sides. It actually feels a little bit kind of nicer on this one, to be honest, because it's a polymer handle, and the VHS has a non-reciprocating charging handle that is not connected to the bolt carrier at all. So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. That means, as a lot of people say, you can do thumb over bore and kind of hold in here and not have to worry about this slapping you around. Well, in this case, it absolutely does kind of, it reciprocates, which is cool, I suppose, but yeah. So let's talk about forward assist real quick, because that's a fun question, right? So the forward assist on the G36 is essentially you pulling the charging handle and pushing it in. And what that does is it pushes the charging handle through, and there's a ledge on the other side that it hits on. The problem with that being, if it doesn't sit on that ledge properly, it just kind of flips forward and it doesn't work. So for this one, it won't work on this side, but it sure will work on this side. And it's solid enough. You can probably bang on a little bit. The VHS, however, people have said this is a forward assist, but I'm not so inclined to say so. It's kind of an annoying pain in the ass more than anything. So essentially the bolt carrier on the VHS looks like a SCAR bolt carrier, more or less, except for the SCAR is a square, this one's a tube. What you're really doing when you're pressing this little guy here is you're sticking a pole through that bolt carrier and using it as a forward assist. I don't think that's very helpful, and this is kind of awkward to use, so kudos to this guy for doing well. And yeah, this is a better forward assist, surprisingly, but I mean, they're both kind of mediocre at that. Sling mounts plenty on both sides. HK hooks primarily, actually entirely on this one. This one has both QDs and HK hooks. I had the same problem with this gun that I had with this gun, where the HK hooks are too shallow and you either eat the crap out of the polymer or you can't get your hook in there at all. So HK hooks, except for this front one, is pretty much a non-starter, unless you get an adapter for one of these QD points, I suppose. Handguards, totally changeable via one pin. On the G36s, everything is non-captive. On the VHS, it is all captive. Absolute upgrade. Everything, I think, should be captive pins. The G36 has its own proprietary length of Picatinny rail. It's only these two plugs and plugs at the bottom. Yeah, it is what it is. The VHS actually has M-lock on both sides and the bottom. I know the military VHSs don't have this, and they have the kind of the same format as this. But absolutely fantastic idea to ensure that the American VHSs came into the country with M-lock. I think this would have been a total failure if it didn't. Going to the front, the VHS has a two-position. Let's do this. There we go. The VHS has a two-position gas plug for normal and suppressed. It's a nice kind of 90-degree turn. The G36 is non-adjustable. The G36, kind of along the same lines as the HK416, has the self-regulating vented gas block, self-adjusting gas system. So it's doing its own thing. And then at the front, it's funny because the VHS essentially comes with a G36C flash hider that's 1/2 by 28. It's 4-prong. It looks exactly like a G36C. Yeah, they took a lot of design inspirations from this. The G36K normally comes with a much shorter 4-prong flash hider on a 12.5-inch barrel. Of course, the G36C would come with a tiny 4-prong, and then the full-length G36E and the VHS D on this guy, the full-length 20-inch barrel, will also have the same flash hider. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say it's almost like a let me copy your homework kind of thing, but it was almost a let me copy your homework kind of situation, which is pretty funny. So let's flip these guys over, and that way we can see the other sides, and we can compare these just a little bit more. So let me get the sling out of the way. There we go. On the sides, it's again with both guns, it's more or less a mirror image of the right side, right? How about this? Let's flip this like this guy. There we go. Let's put this guy there. And let's put this guy here. Okay, so let's talk about some other stuff. So going back, before I forget, the cheek riser here is absolutely enormous compared to obviously the G36 where there's no cheek riser at all or there's no cheek anything. This is purpose built because it flows into the brass deflector, and it also houses the little pin that keeps one side or the other dust cover closed. As I said in my kind of preview video, this is very much like a, I'd almost call the same cheek weld as probably like a B5 South Mod, maybe a little bit wider if anything, but it's amazingly comfortable. I like it. One addition to the Hellion that the G36 obviously doesn't have is the dust covers. Makes sense. They cover up which side you're not using, so you know, yeah, and it prevents one more ingress point into the gun, which is kind of cool, I suppose. But yeah, besides that, one pin here, and one pin here takes down your gun. One pin here, and one pin here takes down this gun. So yeah, both take 5.56 or 2.23. The G36 is a little bit more finicky on lower powered ammunition. At least this copy is a lot more finicky with lower powered ammunition. 16-inch barrel on the VHS, 12.5-inch barrel on the G36. Yeah, it's a very interesting analog to both guns once you really start kind of paying attention and then comparing. I don't want to say apples to apples, but almost apples to apples. There's a lot of similarity in this. The VHS, of course, is coming in at an MSRP of $19.99. The G36s, at least the Tommy builds that we can get in the United States, they're coming in at an MSRP of almost $2,800 is what you can get them on the website. So for $800 more, you're getting a G36. I think both guns have their benefits. I think if I really had to pick a gun to take home with me or do something with, I'd probably take the Hellion, to be honest. This is fantastic as a collector's piece, but that's entirely what this is. This is a collector's piece, right? So this was designed back in 1990s. This was designed in 2014. So it's phenomenal to see what you can get out of just 20 years of upgrades and lessons learned and finding out what things work and finding out things that don't work. I think everyone should have both of these, honestly. But one thing I did want to touch on before we closed out is the charging handle slot. Even on this guy, when you have the normal carry handle, the railed one, kind of like this gun, both guns run into the same problem as the FN Scars, where if you swing it out and you have like an EOTech, there's a good possibility you can rack your knuckles on whatever optic you got. So yeah, irregardless, pretty sure everyone doesn't want to continue to listen to my kind of nasally voice for the next 40 minutes. So yeah, great guns both.
I think if you have the opportunity, definitely pick up both of them. I mean, buy whatever you want. Really, there's no reason anyone should ever tell you what you should or should not buy. Um, I To me, the Hellion is absolutely more modern because it had more development time. It had more, trials in the beta stage and what have you. Both guns have reached military service and have had pretty decent military careers. So it's more of just a which one you like more, because they're two sides of the same coin. One's just so happen to be a conventional setup, the other one's a bullpup. But besides that, yeah, let me know. Hopefully you guys like this. I think I'm the first one to ever post a video comparing the two. But if not, so be it. Let me know if you guys have any comments. I appreciate all the good feedback. Yes, I actually got in a normal camera stand this time, so it's not one-handed videos that are sideways anymore. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, share if you want, and we'll go there. So, see ya.